Welcome to Senior Stay or Go TV. Today our guest is Aaron Bizak. He is the founder and chief advocate for Hazels Army. Thank you so much for being with us today. I can't wait to learn more about Hazels Army and learn more about what you have in your binder here.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for being here today. So tell us about Hazels Army.
So Hazels Army actually came about because of the tragic death of my grandmother, Hazel Menching. Back in 2013, she died as a result of negligence and neglect in an assisted living facility. And in the wake of that death, we called for an investigation. The state did an investigation. They cited the facility for 3 major violations leading to her death. And they fined the facility $150, which at the time was the maximum under state law. And what I do for a living is I used to be an emergency medical technician, and now I'm a healthcare lobbyist, basically. I lobby on healthcare policy. So I said, well, you have a unique background, Aaron. Maybe let's look into other laws that might need to be changed, including this $150 law. And we started to put that together, and I created Hazels Army to help serve as a vehicle to move that forward. And so that's what we did. We put together a legislative package that year, teamed up with a number of elected officials in our town, both Republicans and Democrats at the state level and also at the county level. And we brought a package that eventually became the Residential Care Facility for the Elderly Reform Act of 2014. So it's a mouthful. And it ended up being 19 pieces of legislation that we carried that year, all told.
So would you say that's one of your biggest accomplishments, or are there others as well?
Well, the biggest accomplishment was getting them passed. that's always the challenge. You could bring legislation.
Exactly.
But getting them passed is tough. And so we worked the process, the legislative process, and ultimately, between us and a number of other advocacy organizations working together, we passed and signed into law 13 of those laws.
So what do those entail or include?
So one of them was to increase those fines from $150 to $15,000. I called it the Just Add 2 Zeros campaign. That's the only amendment, was put 2 zeros on the end of it. We now require liability insurance, bless you, liability insurance if you own a residential care facility or an assisted living facility. Previously, you didn't have to have liability insurance. You could literally have no insurance and run a facility. Now we have Residents' Bill of Rights. We more than doubled the amount of training for staff members at those facilities. We've
when you say we've doubled, who's we? I mean, that's
the state of California.
State of California.
Yeah, so the state of California, and I think the state of California has a regulatory agency through the Department of Social Services that basically lays out the rules by which you have to follow in order to run an assisted living facility. And so we collectively, the advocacy organizations in the state, changed those rules. And so now, hopefully, people will be better protected and have people around them who are better trained at those facilities.
And or have some place to go if there's a grievance.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And that's really the biggest challenge, is that the state has not been doing its job for a very long time. I'll give you an example. The state of California has 54 police officers who are just specifically dedicated to investigating assisted living facility abuse.
Up and down in those.
Yeah, in the state.
Wow.
54 police officers. In 9 years, they arrested 0 people.
Oh.
So you're telling me that with a police force of 54 people and receiving thousands of complaints, thousands of allegations of abuse, you've never arrested a single person in 9 years? That to me says the state's not really doing its job when it comes to that.
Does this include board and care homes as well, or?
No, it's assisted living facility specifically, and so board and care and skilled nursing kind of fall into their own categories, and are regulated somewhat differently. Yeah, it's assisted living, or what the state calls RCFEs, residential care facilities for the elderly.
Got it. Okay.
So with no arrests in how many?
9 years.
9 years. How do we go about the change? I mean, is there
Well,
has that changed since 2000?
No, not really.
That seems to be the present day.
Yeah, not really. And the challenge is, and this is kind of where we failed, so to speak, with Hazels Army and some of the efforts we did, is that of the 19 laws that we carried, 6 of them specifically were focused on reforming the state. The other 13 were for facilities. The 6 that were for reforming the state did not pass those. They weren't interested in that.
Conveniently.
And so that really is a big failure, as far as I'm concerned, for our effort, is that you can reform the facilities, and the truth is that many of the facilities act admirably and they do an amazing job. I mean, most places are nice places to live. There are some that are skirting the law and not doing things the right way. And so we definitely address those in some way, but the state really has not reformed itself. So that, I think, is, moving forward a topic of concern, a topic of interest for us.
So something you want to still work at.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So is Hazels Army, tell us about Hazels Army. Is it how many people make up the Army?
Yeah, so, really to join Hazels Army, you just have to be a supporter of the organization and like us on Facebook and support us on Facebook, things like that. So there's about 900 people who are actively engaged in some way. But the Army is really made up of, like myself and other people around us who are working collaboratively. Different organizations, maybe disparate interests, but coming together around a common goal, and the common goal really is protecting seniors. And so the Army is really anybody who works together with us and out in the community to make the community safer for seniors and better for seniors.
So if I have my mom or dad are living in an assisted living, I'll use the word community.
Yes.
And I have a concern that there's something going on that I'm questioning. Can I come to you and then you would take that on as an advocacy issue?
Yes, I can definitely do that. I do that for folks now. I mean, our focus areas are legislative reform, consumer awareness, and community education. And so on the consumer awareness side, I serve completely for free. I will help people who call us or engage with us on Facebook or email or whatever it may be. If they're having a problem, I will help them walk through exactly what they need to do to file a complaint. I've even gone so far as to help people write their testimony for court and things like that, just to make sure that they are effectively advocating for their senior relative or whoever may be in their family that they're trying to help.
So kind of like what questions, who to talk to, what
Yes.
questions to ask, and where to go within that framework of that community facility.
Exactly.
To find out
Exactly.
what's
Who to
going
call
on.
because you don't really know. Most of the time you don't know. And what's really funny is now there's organizations throughout County of San Diego, Alzheimer's Association, who actually refer people to me when they call in. So I get calls all the time from folks and messages. And a lot of it you can't really share because it's so graphic sometimes, the things that happen. Again, those are few and far between, but they do happen. They do happen, and it's an unfortunate thing, and they need to be rooted out because we need to make these communities as safe as possible for the people who live there.
Exactly.
Have the communities at all reached out to you to say, tell us what we could do better? Tell us. I mean, are they kind of hands off and they don't really want to?
No, they. I think the communities kind of stick together, and they saw this. They saw some of the effort as being a bit. We are antagonistic. That's the way they saw it because we're calling out issues that are happening. But our goal has been, and I actually worked on a project last year, and we have it in a best practice form that we're putting together. But our goal is really to gather best practices from other facilities across the country and actually around the world, because there's some amazing examples in Europe and places like that.
Yep.
To say, how do we make these available to people for free so they can take these ideas and make their facilities better? Because that's really the goal. It's not to disparage anybody or talk down to anybody or accuse anybody of anything. I mean, sometimes people do bad things and you got to call them on the carpet for it. But the goal is to make society and the community in these communities better for seniors.
I notice you have something here if you want to
Yeah.
show the...
I talked about community education, and one of the efforts that we do is I actually go out and I do a speaker series for high school and middle school students, and I talk about my grandfather, Hazel's husband, Chick, my grandfather, who was a prisoner of war in World War II for 3.5 years in a Japanese prison camp. And so I go out and I share his story. And I share about how my grandparents impacted my life in a really positive way. And I encourage young people to connect with seniors in their families or in their communities to learn from them. Because I think that that's how we build a healthy relationship with seniors over time.
Yep.
And a respect in every decision we make.
Yep.
And one of the things I bring out are primary sources. And you can kind of see here, this is actually, if you've ever seen the movie Unbroken, about Louis Zamperini and his
Yep.
Experience in World War II, this is actually a record of my grandfather's voice when he was a prisoner of war in a Japanese radio message. This is the actual script that he wrote for himself. The actual script here.
Oh my gosh.
This, on the next page, is the Western Union telegram that my great-grandmother received saying that his voice had been intercepted. And so when you tell these stories,
Isn't that cool?
and you
That is
bring
really
out these amazing primary sources, it really does engage young people, and it encourages them to connect with the seniors in their communities. And we have an entire curriculum that we've developed that's Common Core aligned, that teaches young people how to do oral history interviews. And so they'll go out and do oral history interviews, and they'll write a reflective essay on what they learned. And then we also have a capstone project where young people can come up with ideas on how to make society better for seniors, and then they submit them to me, and if I like them, I will go and try to make them happen.
That's very cool, because most of us grew up with our grandparents very close by, but today people are all scattered and they don't necessarily have that luxury, and I'm grateful that I had it. So.
Oh, I am absolutely as well, because my life has completely changed because of my grandparents and the influence that they had. And it's interesting because I've had students come up to me after the speeches and say, I think my grandfather was in the Korean War, or I think my grandfather now is in the Vietnam War,
Yeah.
or something like that. And what they've done is they've gone and connected with them and asked them. And it's an interesting thing that grandchildren tend to have a different relationship with their grandparents than their parents did.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and so the grandparents tend to share more information with the grandkids.
Yep.
And so it opens up these doors. And the idea is that not only would young people be more engaged with the decisions that impact their senior relatives and their family, but they take it upon themselves to, in every decision they make, whether they're driving down the street and they see somebody who's in need of help, or they're voting for something, or they're making a business decision, that they say, how does this impact seniors and how do we make society better for seniors? Because they bring so much to the table and they've earned so much of our respect. And I think, unfortunately, they're not getting it all the time now.
Very true.
Yes.
Very, very true.
So, I mean, is there a particular school district that has embraced this, or have,
So I've spoken in Carlsbad Unified, San Diego Unified, a number of charter schools, and a variety of different places. Carlsbad Unified was the first one to pick it up, and Carlsbad High School, I've done speeches there for 3 years in a row, and so 6,000 students have gone through this program so far.
Wow.
so when you say, is it a one-day course? I mean, how is this? I'm just,
Yeah,
that's
so
great. I
so
think it's
so yeah,
fantastic.
it depends on how many students you want to go through it. You could pack an auditorium as full as you want, and I could do one speech, takes 45 minutes. Or like at many of the high schools, because they have different sections, they'll bring in 3 classes for 45 minutes, and then another 3 classes. And so what I do is I take days off of work, and I just do it for free, and I go in and I've given 12 speeches over the course of 3 days.
Wow.
And there's a call to action for the kids. For the students?
Absolutely. You know, what I don't tell them is that it's my grandparents. I don't tell it's my grandfather till the very end.
Oh,
And then
wow.
I kind of let them in on the secret, and it's always goes over very well.
Yeah,
And then I
great.
say, here's what I learned from my grandparents. What have you learned from your grandparents, and what can we do to make things better? And that's how it works. And I also speak to Kiwanis and Rotaries and
Yeah,
the
very-
retired teachers associations, and you name it. So we
very-
give these
very
speeches.
powerful.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool.
Well, what's next for Hazels Army and your advocacy in general?
Trying to expand the number of presentations we do. We do a lot, but I just want to bring the message out to as many people as possible. So we're looking for schools, we're looking for teachers. Whether you're an individual teacher or a school district, if you're interested in that, we'll come and speak with you. It's totally free. We'll give you the curriculum for free, everything. And then also, if you have ideas for legislation, we are interested in hearing them, because we'd like to carry some more legislation moving forward.
Do you work in collaboration with Paul Greenwood here in San Diego?
So yeah, we have worked in collaboration with Paul Greenwood, and obviously, when I worked on the county policies in 2014, one of them was to create the specialized elder abuse investigation unit that Paul Greenwood heads up. And so we have worked with Paul and Bonnie Dumanis and the County Board of Supervisors and a number of other folks. But the idea is, whether it's a local, state, or federal policy, if you have an idea, if you see something, say, hey, this needs to change, bring it to us. We know what to do, and we can collaborate with other advocacy organizations and hopefully bring even further legislation to move the ball forward.
Well, I think it's great because it is the respect has to be there for our seniors. I mean,
And the stories that they have are just so phenomenal.
It's amazing. We had one young student from Carlsbad High School who interviewed her neighbor across the street. And it turns out that her neighbor escaped from Nazi Germany as a child. Jewish woman escaped from Nazi Germany as a child. And she told a story about hiding in a haystack as the Nazis were coming through and looking for her family. And this young lady from Carlsbad High School just knew her as the old lady that lives across the street. And now she has a completely different perspective on those things.
And a whole lot of respect.
Absolutely, and learn so much from her. And that is something she will carry with her for the rest of her life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yes.
Aaron, thank you for being here today, and I hope much success to Hazels Army, and Patty and I are on your side. If there's anything we ever can do for you, don't hesitate to call on us. We've seen a lot of this ourselves, and it's just we need to do better.
That's right, yeah.
So stay tuned for more Senior Stay or Go TV.